1 year after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the war has gone from an initial blitzkrieg operation by the Russians to try to take Kiev quickly, now to a grinding war of attrition. It is not the war the Russians wanted to have, but is the war they've got now. War of attrition means high numbers of casualties, both military personnel and, with the way the Russians fight, civilian casualties as well. Russians have run out of a lot of their precision munitions. They're targeting some of the key critical infrastructure in Ukraine, electricity grids, apartment buildings, really to try to wear down the morale and just the basic living standards of Ukraine. The Ukrainians were successful in the late summer and the fall in retaking territory in the east. The Russian advances were certainly thwarted by the Ukrainians. This is where Ukraine has gone, is trying to punish the Russian military and army and make it very difficult for them to take and hold territory. And what it means in practical terms is we're seeing the Ukrainians kill fairly large numbers, waves of Russians. We're in a very bloody phase of the war. When the war started, the Russians have a significant material advantage. What the Ukrainians have been able to do at various periods of the war is to innovate different kinds of technologies, tactics, techniques, and procedures. A couple of examples there are the way the Ukrainians have used drones or unmanned aerial systems. These are just drones like Chinese-built DJI's Mavics, which have been very helpful to forward-deployed forces. So they're forward deployed to spot for artillery. They're using them for information operations, to download video and put them on social media. They're using them to jam Russian positions, electronic warfare. There's a range of ways they're using them in ways that haven't generally been used in the past. This is a war of survival right now, so there's a lot of initiative that is happening at the lower levels of the Ukrainian military, willing to experiment. Those factors have really contributed to and sped up the innovation among the Ukrainian military. As we look into the next phase of the war, there are significant risks on both the Russian and the Ukrainian side, and to what degree those two countries are willing to take those risks will help outline what the future looks like. The biggest risks to Ukraine right now is that Ukraine is relying on the Western industrial base for its support of weapon systems, munitions, all of the things that are critical for an army in terms of logistics. If Ukraine was to lose a great deal of that support because the West was tired of providing it, in a war of attrition, it would probably spell a very dangerous period for Ukraine. So on the Russian side, a war of attrition, if the West continues to provide assistance, will mean larger and larger numbers of Russian casualties and fatalities. That may put some strains on Russia's political leadership. So unless the Russian army can figure out how to fight more effectively, it runs huge risks in actually being able to take and hold much ground, which means this war of attrition can be grinding on both sides. But if we do start to see the Russians push for a ceasefire, at what point do we start to see stronger public and private pushes to settle this conflict at the negotiating table rather than on the battlefield? Because if not, then what we can assume is that this war will continue to drag on for the foreseeable future, which I think is the most likely scenario at this point.